Welcome to Living on the Edge and this very special episode. We're going to talk about parenting and technology. You know, technology is amazing, it's awesome, and all the different things we can do, but let me tell you this as a parent. What you don't know can destroy your child. I made a huge mistake because I was ignorant about technology that did amazing damage to one of my kids. I don't want that to happen to you. I've actually invited him here to share his story. Stay with me. At the heart, for parents to understand, basic needs really haven't changed. I mean, what kids are looking for, they're going about it differently, but it's really not much different than, you know, the core of life and what people need.
Yeah, I think in a world that's ever changing, you want to see the things that don't change. You know, there's so many things that can overwhelm you, but then you realize they're still my kid. I know there's all these things that are coming at them, but their needs and desires have not changed. In fact, here's just three basic needs and desires. The first is a deep need and desire for community, that sense of belonging. And you see that developed online, the whole social network and how our kids are interacting with one another. There's this desire for belonging. I thought I'd write down a few just ideas and some things that we did to develop that sense of community. You had talked about earlier, but we had dinner every night at 5:30. And there's a lot of things you could call me. Just call me, don't call me late for dinner. I mean, and because you were in trouble when you were late, is that we had set aside sacred space. And today you got to have set aside sacred community space where you're unplugged. Where you go on vacation, dads, and we don't look at these. We turn these off and we leave this at home. Next is a deep desire and need for significance, to know their purpose in life, to have an impact, and that sense of importance. I remember this was developed for me in our family because we served together. I was taught that ministry wasn't a job. Ministry is just life. This is how you live. This isn't a thing you clock in and out of. That fundamentally changed the way I approach to life, that I have a purpose here and it's God-given to love Jesus and help others come to know Him. And you begin to do that. We would serve a lot and go on missions trips. And I'd encourage you, age appropriate, take your kids on missions trips. Mm-hmm. Take them overseas where they get to see the realities of the world. I get to do that and have done that so much in youth ministry. And I wish their parents were with me when I'm taking them to Mexico and Haiti and these places around the world. And it totally reshapes the way they understand the world because they have such a bigger picture instead of their little confined world of where they live. Then the last one is a deep desire and need for boundaries, to have a sense of security, of stability. This is instilling family contracts and values. I've watched teens that had unlimited resources from affluent families and had no boundaries. And I watched this pattern with the teens, especially male teens, that had no boundaries, little father figure, and lots of resource. They almost always ended up in the military. And just saw that actually is a fundamental need of ours. It's not just a nice thing. It's a deep desire, basic human need that we need somebody to say, you're safe. Here's the boundaries. Here's where you fit and are secure.
And the military certainly provides plenty of those boundaries, don't they? It's kind of amazing. Well, you can see what you need to know, and now let's kind of just sharpen our focus and say, what's the game plan? I'm a parent, and I'm sure there's people in this room and that they are just super tech savvy, and we've learned that that's not necessarily answering all the questions, but there's probably some like me that are a little bit slow. And
just low tech.
Just low tech, that's right, low tech. So what's the game plan? What do I need to do as a parent so that what happened to you won't happen to their kids?
Yeah. The first thing is, as parents, we need to lead the way. We need to be the leaders that begin to move things forward. Oftentimes we react to problems that could have been prevented. And we need to begin to lead the way. First thing is under that is become a student and a support for you. As long as you have students, you should be a student. As long as you have kids that are in your home, you need to constantly be a student and be learning. The second thing is then get help if necessary. Resources are great, and we need resources. And as you think of resources, and especially as technology is changing, think blogs, not books. Books take so long to get published, and by the time they're published, the principles if you are true, but then if you're wanting something specific, it's really out of date. And so as you're getting up-to-date information, think online blogs. But as getting help, there's kind of three areas I kind of thought about. One is just personally. I know there's probably some dads and maybe even some moms in here that can't lead the way because you have a past like my past. But your past is your present right now. And it's still a secret. And you personally need to get help. And you need to maybe hear and have a conversation with someone and just say, I need help. Part of leading the way and being the man or the woman of the house is I need to lead the way and get honest. And get real, honest help. The second is in the area of technology. You're going, I'm not real technical. And you might need some technical support. See, it's okay not to, if we don't know how to do things, it's just not okay to not know how and not do anything. And a lot of times we use that as an excuse. Why? I just don't know how. It's over my head. Our kids need us to lead the way and go, you know what? So we hire somebody to come in. Or we cancel stuff so we don't have a problem. That's kind of a revolutionary thought. And the last one is professionally. If you are coming at it, especially with teenage kids, and you've not done anything, you might be going down a rabbit hole and you kind of thought, not my kid. No way, this is not my kid. And that's where you were at.
Yeah.
And it was your kid.
Yeah.
And you might uncover some things that you don't know how to deal with. And as you do that, then get help. Get professional help. Talk to a pastor, a youth pastor, maybe a counselor, to know how to respond well. I shared my story in a sermon at the church that I work at, and as I enjoy doing that because I know it then gives courage to others to begin to come out of the darkness. And so as I did that, then I got a phone call from a dad and said, hey, I just found out both my boys are looking at stuff online. I don't know what to do or how to help them. I didn't grow up in a Christian background. I don't know any of this stuff. Could I bring them in and talk with you? And in fact, that's one of the things that under number 2, I'll just give you the fill-in, have the talk. He's like, I don't know how to talk to them about this. I said, sure, come on. And he brought his 2 boys in. He's sitting in there. And we just sat in my office and just began to talk and ask questions. And he left out of there. And actually, I had just a talk with his dad for a little bit. And then I just talked with the 2 boys. And then gave them tools and resources of, okay, here's the next step. And what was so fun was, these were great kids, and they have an amazing relationship with their dad. And what was great to watch was now I see them at church, and I just go, hey, how's it going? And just their faces light up, and it's great. Well, they're not caught being captive to something that they don't even really want to be captive to. Anyone who's been stuck there understands what felt like freedom became slavery real quick. And now they're free.
And some of the practical ways is, we're not going to go through all your last page of notes, but if you just go ahead and look in the back, covenant eyes and safe eyes are probably 2 of the easiest, best ways that, everything from A to Z, you download filters, covenants, contracts with your kids. In other words, the real practical how-tos of having this talk and then knowing, well, what do you put on your equipment to safeguard it? Those 2 are some of the best. Any others you'd highlight?
Yeah, just for if you're personally struggling with pornography or online sexual addiction in any way, XXX Church is a great resource and actually has...
That's the actual website?
That's the actual website. So
that'll get your attention.
Yeah.
You got to type in church pretty quickly, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't forget church.
Yes, that's right. Just trying to keep it on the middle of the fairway here.
That would not be beneficial.
Okay.
but is a great website. And it's a whole online church dedicated to freeing guys and gals to the addiction of porn and sexual addictions there. And they have a whole process that you can go through that's excellent. But then under Have the Talk, as you begin to lead the way, you need to have these conversations often and openly with your kids.
And you're talking about everything from when they're young, you know, the birds and the bees and how life works and what we do on the internet and what we don't do and what we do the minute someone logs on that you don't know. It's talking about all those kind of values.
Yeah, it's talking about what are your values as a family? What are you going to uphold? Where are they at? Ask the questions as you're driving, talking to them. How are you doing in these areas? One of the things you did constantly after, and it was a little annoying, I'm not going to lie, but it was good, was then you would ask, I was away at school in Chicago, and you would ask, so son, how are you doing on this? Yeah. You would ask the hard questions. So often we want to avoid some of the awkward conversations because it's awkward for us, and yet our kids desperately need us to address the tough issues and are longing to know how do we navigate that and to enter in that.
But you say create a safe environment, because a lot of times you don't want this explosion. How do you do this where your kids really will open up and be honest with you? How do you create that safe environment?
I remember when we had our first kind of birds and the beestalk. It's much too late now with technology. It was when I was, I think, 11 or so.
You would even have that younger in this world, huh?
Most kids see porn by the age of 11. That's the average age that 90% of kids who see porn see it by the age of 11. So, and 8-year-olds. So as you're just thinking about TV that you watch and commercials that are coming on, just bombarded we are with this society, you begin to go, okay, I need to begin to have this talk and not allow, whether it's the school system or anyone else, to shape their values and have the talk for you. And go, if they're doing public school, and you need to know when they're having that talk, and you need to do it before, or say, hey, my kid's going to respectfully not be a part of that, and I'm going to have my own talk with them. Mm-hmm. But yeah, earlier. But creating that safe environment is a lot of what you've already talked about and addressed, of creating that sense of unconditional love. That talk that we had, and we've had many more, but I remember sitting on my bedside in my room and having this conversation, and at 11 I really didn't know all what my dad was talking about. But here's what stuck with me all these years. Was him sitting beside me, put his arm over my shoulder and said, son, no matter what you do, I'll always love you. No matter where you go, all these things. He set the framework for what we believe in, all the values, but at the end of it then was, here's the thing, there's nothing you could ever do that would make me love you any less. Well, that stuck with me. Just verbalizing that stuck with me, to know that, you know what, there's things I don't want to share with my dad, and there's things that come up, but I know that no matter what happens, he loves me. And then he showed it. I think that's another thing, is creating a safe environment. You have to react well. It's so important, because you'll catch your kids doing something, and then you'll just blow up at them. And I remember your response was not of one condemning me when we had the talk of confrontment here, but it was tear-filled, and talked about forgiveness. Is you asked for forgiveness, of saying, I blew it in this area, I didn't know, and I'm sorry. And I think that's part of the way you create safe environments.
So you lead the way, you have the talk, and then you say here, keep control. But even before that, if I'm a parent, give me 3 or 4 quick warning signs that tell me my son or daughter is probably having problems.
Yeah, absolutely. One is just when you see a noticeable change of behavior. If it's a character change, they were outgoing, now they're real reserved. They become secretive, defensive, gets angry or obsessive.
Grades go down. Withdrawal from family. And here's a telltale one. If the screen changes every time you come into the room.
You just notice all of a sudden the screen changed real quick. They're not always going to a new page or clicking a new channel. They just didn't want you to see what they were looking at.
Okay, practically then, keep the control. How do you keep the control? And give us some pointers on that.
Yeah, if you don't keep the control, your kids have the control. They'll always be ahead of us. I mean, I look at my 6-year-old daughter, and she just is amazing on the iPhone. I mean, she just whips around and go to Angry Birds, her favorite song, you name it, and she can't even tie her shoe, you know. And so if we don't keep the control, our kids will have the control. And first is keep it in a public location. Keep all media, anything that's connected to the internet, keep it all public. I would even encourage you, don't allow phones to go into the room. I mean, with the access that you have here, it's exactly the same as having a computer in your room. And that's just unwise for especially young boys and young girls at this age and what they're getting in trouble with as well. Have specific rules and contracts. What are the rules for your family, and what are they here? And you need to be clear on what are they when they're somewhere else as well. Say, these are our family rules, and they're not just about here, but they're when you're with others. And in fact, Covenant Eyes and Safe Eyes have great contracts on there. If you want to look and go, okay, what do we really need? You can go to that website and find some great rules and contracts. Set parental controls on all internet devices and TV. If your internet device, whatever it is, whether it's a Blu-ray player, whether it's computer or phone, if it doesn't have any type of restriction or parental control, it shouldn't be connected to the internet. My phone, let me see if I can get into it. My phone here, I have it set where when I go into general here, it's got restrictions. I personally can't get into this myself. I had my accountability partner. I went in here and I took YouTube off and set all the appropriate content that I wanted, and I said, here it is, you set it for me. I don't want that. I want to live in freedom. So I need this, and if I need this, your kids need this.
What they're finding now is that we have a generation, and then this is, it was a NBC special called Crack Buried. It's a documentary. It's about an hour and 15 minutes long. You could Google it. You can find it. It is an amazing thing. And they will interview Stanford scientists who are doing MRIs of the brain. And what we're finding is when kids have high doses of this for long periods of time, they now can get lots of information. They can't think deeply. They can't problem solve. And in fact, what they're finding is that certain parts of their brain are not developing. There's something different that happens when you read a book, have a conversation, or speak than when your mind is figuring out little pixels. And that's why, you know, we got families now that are using these as babysitters. You know, the kid cries, stick it there. Kid cries, hand him one of these. I mean, when 3-year-olds are getting eye touches, what it really does is sedates them. But it is impacting how their brains are developing. So you need to understand that it's not just the amount of media or the type of media, it is the very nature of the medium itself that has difficulties that we've never had in the history of the world. And so as a parent, you know what? We just got to get our game on and understand what's going on. And then we're back to, you know, all those basics, right? You set some boundaries. You know, can you imagine your daughter or son? What do you mean I have to check my phone? Well, it's just like the old Westerns, right? Check your guns at the saloon, you know? And by the way, everybody needs to. We got dads, kids, people texting. There's now addiction centers for recovery where people are going, same documentary, are going to recovery places because they can't stop. People communicate, I'm more stressed when I can't connect electronically. So, you know, this is a big deal. This is a really big deal that has to do with your values, boundaries, applying everything that we've said. And then you go on from that to, you know, the last two practical things are knowing where they go and then go where they go. Explain what those are, Ryan.
Well, you got to know where they go. And sometimes we try to check browser history. And if you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. It's really an ineffective way to figure out where they go anyways, because you can change those. But I wanted to give you just what do you do when they're little? And then how do you know where they go when they're older? And two pictures came to mind. One is when they're little, that we need to be a gate. We need to determine what comes into their minds and what goes out from them. You do that by filters. You do that by like Safe Eyes or Covenant Eyes. You can download those onto your computer and then set specific age restrictions, block certain sites, and be able to see exactly where they went because they have to log into that. And so you want to be a gate, and you realize, okay, my responsibility as a parent, I need to make sure I know what's going into their mind. And so I'm going to be a gate. But as they get older, they need more and more access to the internet, and they're going other places. So then we need to become guardrails. I remember sharing the whole concept of guardrail with the college-age young adults group that I was speaking with, and I said a guardrail is a system that is designed to divert, there you go, potential disaster. It's not to divert, can't even get that one right twice, fun. So oftentimes we think guardrails are keeping us from fun. And when you begin to help your kids understand, I do this because I love you, because I want to keep you from harm. And when you can have an honest, I have guardrails in my life to keep me from harm, that gives you credibility, especially with your teenagers. And so you set filters when they're younger, and you still have some of those, but then you have to have guardrails and monitor and have accountability. And as you do that, you need to go where they go. This is one of the missing steps I see parents all the time. They're like, well, I know my kid goes on Facebook. But if you don't go where they go, you're not seeing what they're doing. You don't know how they're responding. You're not hearing and seeing what types of friends they have online. And is that the type of friend you would want in your house? Go where they go. I'd say check online accounts. You need to have all passwords for your entire family. Someone does. For my family, that's my wife, because I don't need all the passwords. So someone in your family that, as a parent, needs to have all the passwords.
Well, what if I'm a teenager and I'm 17 years old? Like, you don't trust me? What's the deal? I mean, you go to some conference or watch some video and, you don't trust me now? Come on, get off it. I mean, how do you respond? Because that is going to be what some people are going to get.
Yeah. Well, and
it's nice to be the teenager for 30 seconds, wasn't it? Come on, Dad.
Go to your room.
Okay. Time out. No, that's a real issue.
It is.
What would you say?
If I don't trust me, if I want to keep harm's way from me, I certainly want to do that for you. Yeah. That's where we have to be honest with our kids. I've watched parents that have so hurt their kids because their past, they weren't willing to share that with them. And then they didn't think they could actually speak into that area, and so they just let their kids do what they want.
And I just would say, biblically, you just say to them what you say about everything else. No temptation is common to man. David was a godly man. In a weak moment, the most godly man of his generation made a dumb mistake that cost him and others dearly. Son or daughter, here's what I know. I'm weak, you're weak, has nothing to do with trust. It has everything to do from keeping you from the windows of opportunity in that 1 or 2% of the time where you might be weak, where things will happen that can destroy your life. So you keep me accountable, I'll keep you accountable. We're in this together. Of course I trust you, but the heart is deceitful above all else. Jeremiah 17, 9 and 10. Who can understand it? You just need to understand that's who we are. We need one another. And by the way, that's the way it's going to be.
Yeah. And realize when they're weakest. It's when they're alone.
Yep.
When it's late. You have control over those.
Yeah.
The third one you don't is when they're with others. And that's when you really work hard to instill your values. But you have control of what happens online, or can have control, when they're alone at the house. Well,
Ryan, you have been through this. You now set guardrails for your life. You've worked with junior high, high school, college. The world's changing. And these are a lot of practical things. And my encouragement is, this is not one where you say, you know what, I really ought to do something about this. This is one where you look at the back of this and you say, I'm going to make a list of, okay, is our computer in the right spot? What filters are on? Have I had the talk with each of my children? What's our game plan? And our prayer is that your kids will never have to go through what my kid did. Because you don't want that at all for them. But you have to be the parent who's willing to do the work and set the boundaries and love them.
As we close today's program, I have a question for you. It's a very important question, so put your thinking cap on, okay? What's the one thing that God wants you to do in light of what you heard? I mean, Ryan talked about getting that computer out in a public place. He talked about going to a website and putting some protection on it. He talked about you knowing, do you know the password of your child's Facebook? I mean, what's the one thing you need to do to be a responsible parent to protect your child? And here's the deal. Write that down and do it in the next 48 hours. Don't wait, don't procrastinate, just do it.